On a Wednesday morning in August, the cattlemen in Creek County all had their heads bent over their phones. Not texting. Counting. Hay was $147 a bale, pasture grass had turned the color of old rope. And every rancher with cows still on the ground was doing the same quiet math. How many can I sell? How many can I feed? And how much money do I lose before the rain comes back? That was the summer when everyone watched the pastures fail, everyone except Mara Ellis. Because while the men at the feed store were arguing over hay trucks and auction prices, Mara was walking through the back pasture with a hand saw, a hanging scale, and a branch from a tree most of them had been mowing down their entire lives. A mulberry tree, not an orchard tree, not a pretty shade tree beside a farmhouse. A rough, fast-growing, deep-rooted mulberry that older ranchers in that part of Oklahoma called brush. And that brush was about to keep her father's cattle eating when the county ran out of grass. Mara was 23 when the idea first got her in trouble. She had grown up 12 miles outside Bristow, Oklahoma, on 412 acres of mixed pasture, bottomland, and leased hay ground. Her father, Ray Ellis, ran 76 head of black baldy cows, mostly Angus and Hereford crosses, with a few older cows that should have been sold years earlier but somehow kept earning their place. Ray was not careless. That mattered. He checked water tanks before breakfast. He kept vaccination records in a metal file cabinet. He knew which corner of the south pasture stayed wet too long in April, and which ridge burned first in July. He was the kind of cattleman who did not gamble because he did not have to. His margins were thin enough, without adding imagination to the bill. Mara went to Oklahoma State for animal science, she liked nutrition classes, she liked reproduction. She liked anything that came back to cattle. What she did not expect to care about was a 2-credit elective called Silvopasture Systems and Forage Trees. She signed up because the class fit between lab and work. She walked out 16 weeks later, unable to look at her father's pasture the same way again. The professor was Dr. Elise Ransom, a range scientist who had spent years studying tree forage in hot, dry grazing systems. Not ornamental trees, not windbreaks, feed trees, trees managed like a crop, cut and regrown, placed inside pasture instead of shoved to the fence row. One species kept showing up in Mara's notes, mulberry. It grew fast, it could be cut hard and regrow, its leaves were palatable to cattle, and under the right management, the leaf material could test high enough in protein to matter when summer grass went flat. But the line that stayed with Mara was not the protein number, it was the timing. When heat hammered the pasture and warm season grass quick building feed, the trees were still pulling water from deeper soil. The top of the pasture looked dead, the roots underneath were not. Mara filled a blue notebook with yield estimates, leaf samples, spacing diagrams, and ugly arithmetic. If she planted fodder rows on 30 acres, and half the trees survived, and the cattle used even a conservative part of the regrowth, the system would not replace hay. But it could reduce the moment when hay became a weapon pointed at the bank account. That was the first version of the idea. Ray Ellis heard it at the kitchen table in May. Mara laid out the notebook after supper while her mother, Claire, dried plates at the sink slowly enough to hear every word. Mara explained pollarding. She explained spacing, she explained why the trees had to be protected until the trunks were high enough to survive cattle rubbing. Ray listened the way he always listened, still face. Coffee cup in one hand. No interruption. When she finished, he turned 3 pages of the notebook, looked at one diagram, then closed it. He said, "Mulberries are what I cut out of fence corners." Mara said, "Because they're in the wrong place and nobody's managing them." Ray looked toward the dark window over the sink. He said, "Cows eat grass." Mara said, "Cows eat what keeps them alive." That was the first time her father looked irritated. Not angry. Just irritated in the way practical men get when a sentence sounds too simple and too dangerous at the same time. He told her he would think about it. That was not a yes. But it was not no. So Mara did what people with notebooks do, when they have not been believed yet. She kept writing. By the following spring, she had nursery prices from a grower in eastern Oklahoma, a planting map, a cost sheet, and a promise from Dr. Ransom to answer questions if the Ellises actually tried it. Ray gave her the back 36 acres. Not the best pasture, not the easiest pasture. The back 36 was rough ground with a shallow draw, poor summer grass, and enough rocks to punish a mower. He said, "Put your trees where they won't cost me good grazing." Mara knew exactly what that meant. It meant, if it failed where failure was already familiar. She ordered 90 mulberry saplings. For 3 weekends in March, she planted them in staggered rows across the back pasture, 40 feet apart, each one wrapped in wire and marked with a painted stake. She put the rows where cattle already walked to water, not where the trees looked pretty. That was important. She was not building a park, she was building a feed line the cattle would find without being taught. The first person outside the family to laugh was Boyd Carver. Boyd ran Carver Feed and Supply on the west side of Bristow. He had been selling mineral tubs, range cubes, seed, twine, gates, and opinions for 27 years. Before that, he had run cattle himself until drought, debt, and 2 bad calf markets convinced him he was better at supplying ranchers than being one. He knew the county. He knew the families. He knew who was stretched, who was bluffing, and who was one breakdown away from selling equipment. That knowledge had made him useful, it had also made him certain. Mara came into the feed store in June for fly tags. Her blue notebook was under her arm. Boyd was behind the counter with 3 local ranchers drinking burnt coffee and avoiding the heat. He asked what she was working on. She could have said, nothing. Instead, she told the truth. Mulberry fodder rows. Managed browsing. Summer protein. Drought buffer. The room went quiet just long enough for everyone to understand that she was serious. Then Boyd laughed. Not cruelly, at first. Worse than that. Casually. The way a man laughs when the idea is already dismissed before the explanation reaches the floor. He said, "Mara, your daddy has spent 20 years keeping brush out of pasture. College sends you home and now you want to plant it in rows." One of the ranchers smiled into his cup. Mara tried to explain that unmanaged brush and managed fodder were not the same thing. Boyd lifted his hand, a small gesture. Enough to stop her. He said, "Your father is a good cattleman. Learn what he knows before you start fixing what isn't broken." The men went back to talking about fly pressure and diesel. Mara paid for the tags. She carried them to the truck, then she opened the notebook on the tailgate and wrote down exactly what Boyd had said. Not because she wanted revenge, because sometimes, a line tells you what the real problem is. The problem was not the tree, the problem was who was asking people to see it differently. The first year did not prove much, Mara knew it would not, the saplings were small. Some were browsed through the cages, 2 died in a hard dry spell, 1 was snapped by a curious heifer with more force than intelligence. By September, she had 84 living trees. She clipped sample branches from the strongest ones, weighed the fresh material, dried small batches in the tack room, and calculated the dry matter like Dr. Ransom had taught her. The numbers were almost embarrassing. Enough leaf and twig material to equal $280 of purchased supplement. Ray looked at the total and said, "That won't feed a barn cat." Mara said, "No." But year 1 was never the point. That winter, she rewired weak cages, replaced dead trees, and kept the cattle out of the rows until spring. The second year was different. Mulberry does not grow like a polite tree when it has water and sun. It pushes. It throws new shoots. It acts offended that you ever doubted it. By July, the back pasture looked strange enough that neighbors slowed down on the road. Rows of green rising out of brown grass. Not tall shade trees yet, not a forest, just stubborn green structure where the pasture usually gave up. Mara cut the trees high enough to keep trunks intact and low enough that regrowth stayed within reach. The cattle learned the pattern in less than a week. When the gate opened, they did not wander, they walked straight to the rows. That changed Ray. Not completely, but enough, because cattle do not care about theories. They do not care about college. They do not care whose name is on a research paper. They go where feed is. And Ray Ellis watched 76 cows walk to the thing he had called brush. That fall, Mara's dried weight estimate came to 1,100 pounds of usable fodder material across 36 acres. At that year's supplement prices, it was worth $810. Still not a miracle, but it was no longer nothing. Ray read the figures at the kitchen table and tapped one finger on the page. He said, "You trust those weights?" Mara said, "I trust them because I wrote down how I got them." He looked at her for a long moment. 2 weeks later, he said she could plant the ridge pasture. Another 120 trees went into the ground the next March. And then came the summer that made the notebook matter. By late May, the ponds were low. By the second week of June, the Bermuda had stopped recovering after grazing. By July, the county looked burned without ever catching fire. Ranchers started calling for hay 6 weeks early. Pastures that should have carried pears into September were done by the 4th of July. Sale barn runs got heavier every week because cows that had been kept through 4 pregnancies were suddenly too expensive to own. Hay went from $88 a round bale in spring to $147 before August. Range cubes jumped too. Fuel was high. Trucking was worse. A cow does not pause her stomach because the market is ugly. Every day she eats. Every day, the bill follows. For Ray Ellis, the extra feed expense was pushing toward $3,800 above a normal month. And that was before winter. The back 36 looked bad at first glance. The grass was short. The soil had opened in little cracks. The red dirt showed through the pasture like a warning. But the mulberry rows were green, not lush, not magical, just alive in a way the grass was not. Mara began cutting controlled portions every few days and letting the herd clean up the regrowth zone. She recorded which rows recovered fastest. She tracked browsing time. She tracked cattle condition. She tracked every bale they did not set out because the trees carried part of the day. The ridge pasture was younger, but even those trees mattered. Between late June and early September, the 2 plantings produced an estimated 6,400 pounds of usable dry equivalent fodder. Mara valued it against what they would have paid for supplement and emergency hay. $4,670. Not saved on paper. Saved in a check Ray Ellis did not have to write. That number changed the room when Mara brought it to the table. Claire sat down before Mara even started talking. Ray read the page once, then again. Outside, the yard light buzzed against a dark, hot evening. The air still smelled like dust because the rain had not come yet. Ray said, 4670. Mara said, conservative. He said, off the trees. She said, off the trees, and off the bales we didn't feed. He kept his eyes on the notebook. Then he said, I should have listened faster. That was all. For Ray Ellis, it was a speech. Claire reached over and put her hand on Mara's wrist. Nobody said anything for a while. There are some victories that do not sound like applause. They sound like a father admitting the ground changed under him, and his daughter had noticed first. But the county still had to learn. The feed store heard before Boyd came to ask. Numbers move in rural places the way weather does. Nobody knows exactly who first said what, but by October, people were asking why the Ellis cows looked better than they should have. Not fat, not untouched by drought. Just steadier. Their backs held condition. Their calves did not look as drawn. And Ray had not sent as many cows to town as people expected. At the sale barn, two men asked Ray what he was feeding. Ray said, "Ask Mara." That sentence traveled faster than the numbers. Boyd Carver heard both. He waited 3 weeks. Then one cold morning after the first real front came through, his pickup turned into the Ellis driveway. Mara was in the barn filling mineral feeders when she heard tires on gravel. Boyd got out slowly, hands in the pockets of a canvas coat. Looking toward the back pasture where the pollarded rows stood dark against the pale grass. He said, "Morning." Mara said, "Morning." He looked at the trees for a long time. Then he said, "I heard what those rows did for you this summer." Mara did not help him. She asked, "Which part did you hear?" He nodded once, accepting that. "The feed number," he said. "And the cows." Mara set the mineral bag down. Boyd cleared his throat. "I'd like to understand how you set it up." That was the apology before the apology. Mara thought about the feed store counter. The coffee. The lifted hand. The way he had stopped her before the idea was finished. She said, "You told me to learn what my father knew before fixing what wasn't broken." Boyd looked at the ground. He said, "I remember." Mara said, "It was broken, it just hadn't been tested hard enough yet." The wind moved through the tin above them. Boyd said, "I was wrong." Mara said, "Yes." Not mean. Not soft, just true. Then she picked up the blue notebook and walked him to the pasture. She showed him the spacing, the cages, the height of the cuts, the recovery intervals, the rows the cattle favored, the trees that failed, the trees that surprised her, the pages where she had written numbers no one wanted to hear until they needed them. Boyd asked good questions. That mattered, too. A man can be wrong and still become useful if he starts asking better questions. By the time they got back to the truck, Boyd said he had 5 customers who were scared of another summer like the last one. He asked if he could bring them out. Mara said yes. The first group came in January. 6 ranchers in heavy coats stood in the back 36 while Mara held the notebook in gloved hands and explained that trees were not a replacement for grazing management. They were a second layer. Grass was still the base. Water still mattered. Stocking rate still mattered. Bad management could ruin trees as easily as pasture. But a ranch depending on one kind of feed was a ranch with one point of failure. 3 of the 6 planted trial rows that spring. Small ones. 20 trees. 30 trees. One cautious man planted 12 and acted like he had financed a railroad. Mara did not laugh. She answered calls. She checked cages. She sent them the spreadsheet template she had built from the notebook. She told every one of them the same thing: do not trust the idea, trust the records. By the next year, 8 operations in the county had fodder rows. By the year after that, 14. Boyd stopped calling it brush. At the feed store he started saying, "There may be something to what the Ellis girl is doing." Eventually he stopped saying girl. That took longer than the trees did. Mara runs the operation now. Ray still checks fences because he does not know how not to. But the grazing plan is hers. The tree rows cover 190 acres, not every acre, because Mara learned early that a good idea becomes a bad one when people stop respecting its limits. The cows still graze grass, they still get hay. They still need mineral, water, shade, and ordinary cattle work, but in normal years the tree rows cut purchased summer supplement by about 26%. In dry years, they have cut emergency feed costs by more than 40%. The herd is up to 91 cows. Weaning weights are steadier, cull decisions are less panicked. And the ranch no longer treats drought as a surprise every time the sky forgets them. The blue notebook is still on a shelf in the office, beside binders, soil tests, and a laptop full of cleaner data. Mara keeps it because screens make records look finished. The notebook makes them look earned. Coffee stains. Mud fingerprints. Bad math crossed out. Pages where the first year looked foolish. That is the part visitors need to see, not the perfect version, the beginning. Boyd Carver retired from the feed store 2 years after the drought. At the small dinner they held for him in the back room of the volunteer fire hall, he stood up with a paper plate in one hand and said the smartest ranching change he had seen in Creek County came from a woman he had once laughed at in his own store. He did not decorate the sentence, he did not make it cute. He said, "I was certain, and she was keeping records. That is why she beat me to the truth." Mara looked down at her cup. Afterward, in the parking lot, Boyd shook her hand. He said, "I'm sorry I made it harder." Mara said, "The trees got stronger after they were cut back." Boyd laughed. This time, it did not close a door. The last part of the story happened on an ordinary night in spring. Mara's niece, Josie, had come home from her first semester at Oklahoma State with a yellow notebook and the particular nervous courage of someone about to offer an idea to a family that remembers ideas. She waited until after supper. Then, she opened the notebook and explained a plan for portable poultry shelters behind the cattle rotation. Hens following the herd. Scratching manure, breaking fly cycles. Adding another small income stream without asking the pasture to become something it was not. She had numbers. She had diagrams, she had costs. She talked for 18 minutes. Ray sat in the living room where he could hear every word. Claire stood at the sink, smiling before anyone else noticed. Mara listened without interrupting. When Josie finished, Mara picked up the yellow notebook and turned 3 pages. Then she said, "Yes." Josie blinked. "Just yes." Mara said, "Yes, but you document everything, eggs, feed, labor, losses, soil tests, what changes and what doesn't. We are not guessing our way into being right." Josie looked at the notebook. Mara said, "Proof is not what you say before people believe you. Proof is what you keep writing down until they have no choice." Ray made a sound from the living room, maybe a laugh, maybe a cough. Maybe both. The back pasture is green earlier now. From the county road the tree rows do not look like much to someone in a hurry. Just lines of rough growth, cut low and thick. Running across red dirt pasture under a hard Oklahoma sky. But cattle know what they are. So do the ranchers who slow down when they pass. For 40 years, men in Creek County cut those trees out of fence corners and called it good management. Then the drought came. The grass quit, the hay trucks got expensive, the sale barn filled up. And in the Ellis back pasture, the cows walked to the rows of brush everyone else had been trying to kill. The trees fed them because Mara Ellis had paid attention before attention was profitable. That was the difference. Not luck. Not a miracle. Not a college idea dropped onto working ground. A notebook. A saw. A pasture with more than one way to survive.